Ed McCaffrey is now going to join the show, the father of Christian, of course. Unbelievable talent, unbelievable watching him grow up. Ed McCaffrey joins the show. Appreciate you. Ed, how you doing, brother?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, fellas.
Hey, I'm calling you coach. Damn it. We're coaches. We're coaches at the end of the day. Hey, did you hire one of my former players as you were leaving Northern Colorado, DJ?
DJ?
Dorian Williams?
I don't.
The DB guy? He must have got in right when Lamb must have got it, right? Is Lamb get it? Yeah. He's now at Abilene, but I got him on with Kalani, good friend of mine at BYU as a GA, and then Kalani just raved about him, and then Northern Colorado hired him in 22 at the end, I guess. And does that when you left?
Yeah, I heard good things about him as well.
Great kid.
But yeah, missed it. I've been gone a couple of years now. I've moved on to other things. Not technically coaching. I still, watch film with my kids and coach my kids. Watch all the 49er and Washington Commander and Miami Dolphin and Denver Broncos games. So I still got my coaching fix, and we'll get guys ready for the draft and their pro days, and then run a summer football camp every summer in June. Been doing it since 1998. So we get about 300 kids, a lot of them from Colorado, but a lot from out of the state. And for me, in addition to coaching the kids, it's a chance to bring coaches back. Coaches I coached with in high school and college, friends of mine that I played with on the Broncos or on other NFL teams, and they come back and coach. So like a little mini reunion for the coaches. Also get a lot of the high school coaches involved as well. So have a lot of fun every June. Still get my coaching fix, but have been doing it for a few years now.
How'd you like the transition when you got the job there and you got it right into it? And with this era going on now, with everything that's transpired, like, was it like old school cats like you and I? Like, was it just like this is what
it was like? Welcome to coaching college football. I got hired. COVID broke out. They kicked us off campus. Said you got to go home. I'm like, what is going on? And it lasted for about 93 days. I had it on my calendar, and I had to learn what Zoom was. I'd never been on a streaming show. I didn't know what Zoom was. I didn't know what Google Meet was. I didn't know what Microsoft Teams was. I had never even been on one of those meetings. So we had to learn how to coach that way. And it was pretty difficult because, you can't tell if kids are paying attention. I'm a new coach, I met everyone briefly in our team meeting, and then we were kicked off campus. So that was rough. Then the portal opens up. Oh, that really hurt. It did. And I don't begrudge the kids at Northern Colorado for going to bigger schools. We lost our whole entire starting offensive line, all of our starting defensive line for the most part, sans one pretty talented player. And they went to, Washington State and Oklahoma and Nebraska. And, luckily they were 5th, 6th year guys, had good opportunities to play somewhere else. It hurt me at the time. It hurt because I knew what kind of team we could have had with the 5th and 6th year players, especially up front on our O&D lines. And then, we lost them all through the portal. And at first it was upsetting, but then, I started thinking, look, I got to look at that position with an FCS school who's a little understaffed, a little underfunded, fighting an uphill battle. I got to look at that as almost like a high school where I'm preparing the players that were in college for other bigger opportunities. No, we never used to think that way. We're like, you sign, 4 years later, you graduate with your friends. But, I got welcomed to the world of the transfer portal in the first year that it happened, and it was the wild, wild west, and we were losing players like crazy. So in addition to COVID, where we lost up to 60% of our team before games. They'd pull them off the bus because they were near someone that had COVID. And then we had the transfer portal where we just lost a ton of players. And then NIL broke out. And it's funny because like at Northern Colorado, NIL meant a coach promised me a rental car for the year. We're not talking millions of dollars. We're talking, I got some housing and a rental car. And at the time it was new territory. So you got to meet with compliance and, weren't allowed to do that as a coach at the time, right? Like I can't give you anything. Right. If there's some alumni that want to step up and give you an NIL deal. But back then it was the first year it happened. So it was very strict regulations. No one knew how they could police it. But at the same time, I didn't want to get in trouble. So I was following the rules. And so COVID, transfer portal, NIL, back to back to back. I felt like I was an expert and all that stuff by the end of it, but it has changed the landscape of college football forever. And it was kind of predictable, right? Then the conferences start realigning. Now schools are allowed to give players NIL deals, not just the collectives. And the rich are getting richer, man. The teams with money are going to continue to get better.
Let me, Smitty, one question. I want to ask you this full circle deal. The NCAA or college football may get rid of the walk-on. And you played with another great wideout, a D2 kid, undrafted, Rod Smith.
Yeah.
And you two go down in Denver Bronco lore. Like, what's going to happen if they eliminate walk-ons? How many more, how would it affect it as it transcends upwards? Like, how bad would that be?
Well, it's all about money now. So I do feel bad for all the kids that were negatively affected. For the players that were given an opportunity to do what the transfer portal was originally designed to do, which is if you're backup and you want to play and you're never going to play where you're at, it was designed to give you an opportunity to play somewhere. And some of those players leave for money and get paid a whole lot of money. Some of them won't play in the NFL, so the money in college is a big deal. And players should, be rewarded for their name, image, and likeness. So for the players that it makes sense for, I'm happy for them. But for a lot of players, especially walk-on players, especially high school players, when COVID hit, it gave everyone an extra year, right? So they just made that rule a few years before that, where if you didn't play more than 4 games, it didn't count as a year. So you could play 4 games, still didn't count as a year. You could redshirt. Then you got another COVID year. If some guys got injuries, they had 6, 7, 8 years. There was, we had 26-year-old players on our team, and so I felt bad for the high school players, because with the transfer portal, a lot of, if you're a college football coach and you got a guy with 3 years of experience and he wants to play for you, or a kid fresh out of high school, a lot of those coaches were deciding to take the veteran player with some game experience over a high school player. So a lot of players got negatively affected by it. And that was very unfortunate. Walk-ons got affected by it. Like, how do you prove yourself? You get in camp as a walk-on, you prove yourself. Then one of the most fun parts of every training camp is when that walk-on gets that scholarship. It's such a cool moment.
No doubt.
And so we won't be seeing that anymore. I think they cut it to 105. They're very strict about it, but it's a money deal. And I'll tell you where it's all going, because my business partner and I, Don Yee, Tom Brady's agent, he represents coaches and players. We tried to start the Pacific Pro Football League many, many years ago, and we predicted all of this. We predicted the transfer portal and NIL. And it was all because of these multi-billion-dollar class action lawsuits against the NCAA. So we saw where it was going, but we didn't quite get the funding, kind of got squashed. But eventually there will be professional football for players right out of high school, because the reason the NCAA had such a monopoly for so many years is because of going way back to 1955. I think it was Ray Dennison. I forget his name. There's a player that was paralyzed. There's a lawsuit. They coined the name student athlete, said we don't have to pay disability. And it was all about disability. So where this is going is it's strengthening, I think, the player's argument that we're employees. And employees get benefits, and employees get disability. And that's the multi-billion-dollar thing that they're going to face eventually. How they navigate that, I don't know. It's still in its infancy. I mean, players are getting paid, but they're looking to have contracts now, player contracts. They're looking to have restrictions on how they can get paid. They're looking to distribute it to all the athletes and all the different sports. I think football breaks away from the other sports. This might be 10 years from now, guys.
Right.
Eventually, football is probably going to break away from the other sports because of regionality. You can't have girls volleyball and baseball teams traveling from California to, North Carolina.
Right.
You're not going to school at that point. But football is the only sport with the 3-year rule. And that's why I think football has to be treated differently. Maybe they get rid of the 3-year rule. I could talk for days. I probably answered more than what.
No, I love it. This is great. Great insight.
Like, I've been studying it for the last 15 years, and pretty much we predicted where this was going to go. It's not where it's going to go yet, but all these things that are happening were very predictable.
What if it is there? I know Darnell, Big Smitty, is going to jump in. What if it's here now though, and The Rock decides to take your model and grab high school kids right now out of the high school to the XFL, USFL? They just signed an extension, I believe, gave $7,000 more to each player, and I think they got some security blanket that out there to say we're going to be around a couple more years at least. I don't think he's making money on this thing. It's going to be hard to compete versus the NFL. What if that is their new model? Is that
it's going to happen? I mean, it is. We were just way too early. We were just way too early. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. And now I think the NCAA, I mean, they're navigating some pretty dangerous waters. And again, it's going to eventually come down to benefits and disability, and there's going to be a lawsuit regarding whether or not players are employees now. Because before it was a barter system where we traded your education for your scholarship, and now it's a little muddier, right? You're getting paid not only from collectives for name, image, and likeness, but the schools are now, paying players to be there. And so, where does that end? And then players are going to start getting upset if you start capping how much a player can make and spreading it out. And so, man, it sure sounds like it's turning into a business, right? And the wealth is getting shared between the universities. The big universities have
TV deals.
Yeah, TV deals. So, and that's what all drives it, are the TV deals. So anyway, I don't know how long it'll take, but eventually everyone's going to be sitting down talking about disability and benefits. And that's where I think it'll really be an opportunity to either eliminate the 3-year rule or to create a professional football league for football players right out of high school.
Wow. Man, we appreciate that insight right there. And it'll be interesting to see how, this thing plays out in the next 5 to 10 years. Because like you said, right now, it's definitely the wild, wild west. And we shall see. But kind of, switching gears here and going into your amazing career, 3-time Super Bowl champion. Known for making some incredible big time plays and catches in big time games. As you look throughout, your career, I guess focusing more so on the 3 Super Bowls there, I guess which one is the most memorable for you and why?
Super Bowl 32, because it was the first Super Bowl championship the Denver Broncos had ever had. And there was families of Denver Broncos fans that went to games together for their whole lifetimes. And not all of them made it to Super Bowl 32. Father and son, mother and daughter, friends that have been going to games forever, and so many losses, right, in the Super Bowl and in the playoffs. And so finally I got to be part of the first Super Bowl championship in Denver Broncos history. And it was my favorite play was the last play of the game. Victory formation, we lined up. John Elway took the knee, tears, smile, just everyone erupted. Man, it was the greatest memory on the football field that I've ever had.
Wow. You share something with my cousin. My cousin's a big time chiropractor out here. I was with the Rams for a while, UCLA with Dick Vermeil years ago. He caught passes from Elway in high school. So out here in the valley.
The dislocated fingers that I got from catching passes from John. I never got the Elway cross though, man. I never let it hit my chest. Got to catch with your hands. But
you gotta get Bruce Sternum, huh?
Yeah, he had a cannon.
Is there equivalent to John Elway right now? Is Josh Allen the closest?
That's a great question. Yeah, probably, because he's a big, strong quarterback with a rocket arm. He's probably the closest thing. They run him a whole lot more. John could run. John was a phenomenal athlete. He was drafted by the MLB and the NFL, and he could have played a bunch of different sports, but big, strong pocket passer. And they didn't have designed runs for him. Although in Super Bowl 32, he had the little helicopter we took off and ran.
Yeah.
So he could run when he needed to. But yeah, that's probably the closest, just because big, strong, great arm strength.
Yeah, we had Carl Mecklenburg on yesterday. He spoke highly of you, but he was on yesterday and was speaking about the same stuff. He was like, man, Elway, I think, is a very undervalued guy today, when we kind of dismissed what he did and who he was before we saw that freak. Like, that was him. Like him and Marino with the quick release and the cannons, and I miss those days. But let me ask you something with this portal thing. Would he have stayed at Stanford? Because the dollar amount that they would have thrown at your son, there's no way, right? He stays at Stanford, or would you say, nah, son, you're staying your butt right here?
Christian would have made 10 times more money at Stanford than he will ever, including future years, make in the NFL. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because in the offseason, he worked with some private equity venture capital people. And without naming the company, he had an opportunity to get in with a new startup, a fintech company that is now, $1 trillion company. So because of the way the rules were structured, it wasn't just that you couldn't, get paid endorsement money for wearing a shoe. It was that you could not start a new business and get funded or be given any equity in a company because that was considered pay. He also tried to start up his own company with some of his Stanford friends that he was in class with and his technology class, and they wouldn't let him fund the company. So he had to drop out, and that company did okay, no big deal. But the opportunity that was missed, and if there's a way to do it, I would do it if I was a general manager of one of the colleges, is to introduce your players to alumni who are starting up new companies and provide equity. That's what the NFL players started doing after a while. You hear all these stories about NFL players that got equity in a company rather than just a check. They got some equity. And when those companies took off, they made more money than they made in the NFL. And that's what college players will do. And so to me, you can keep paying them and getting money from the collectives, and that's real money. That's cash in hand. But I think there's an opportunity to make it even bigger. And so that's why I say, had there been NIL back when Christian played, he would have cleaned up. So he would not have left Stanford. It would have been the best place to be. And I'm hoping that one day, with Andrew Luck leading the charge and some other bright people on the collective that I get to speak to regularly, I'm hoping that's the direction they're going. That's the direction I'm trying to push them to go. But we'll see.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you, is that like I tell Smitty here every day, I argue, I'm like, we keep transferring 4 times in 4 years, and we got guys going to 13 schools today. Some transfer portal kid. Like, don't the relationships and the connections with alumni, like USC, Marshall Business Law, right? They got, billionaires in that. Wouldn't you rather stick it out and meet those guys for future possibilities or opportunities? I just don't understand. I think these kids are being misinformed by these street agents out here, and they're being led down the wrong path, the quick dollar instead of the long-term dollar. And I just think that you made a great point. I think that's a missed point here. We're missing the big picture here with these kids moving around.
There's no doubt about it. It's a different college experience. I know coaches feel like they have to build teams every year. It's not building a program as much as it is building a team. Every year you're losing 20, 30 guys, and you got to replace them. And you don't want to replace them with all freshmen, right? If you don't want to constantly be playing seniors with freshmen, that's a recipe for failure. So you're trying to replace them through the portal. I'll use my example at Stanford. They used to say it's not a 4-year decision, it's a lifetime decision, which is true because you're around brilliant people. It's a phenomenal place to get an education. But now it's harder to convince players of that when they can, make a couple $1 million playing somewhere else. Then you start talking about, the opportunity cost of investing that money now and collecting, interest or, a return on the next 40 years of your life. There's compounding interest. So now it's like, I want to stay at Stanford. I love the school. I'm getting a great education. Maybe love to see more fans in the stands if there's any knock on Stanford, but that's a real decision a family has to make. And when you're a kid from single parent family or from a lower middle income family who's never seen that kind of money in their lives, and you're offering a kid a couple $1 million, that's hard to take down. You can't begrudge them, right? So it's not the athlete's fault. Right. It's the fault of the system. And so I would like to encourage kids to get their education and stick around for 4 years with the teammates that they entered school with, and so that they can get a great education, which is really what most of them are there for, in addition to playing football. Sure. But the way to do it is create incentives to stay. So again, I go back to what I was talking about, having a reward system where every year you stay, you have the equivalent of like an annuity or something that will build for every year that you're there, and you get it when you graduate. I think if they want to go that direction of encouraging kids to stay at the same school, then something that would give them a reward upon graduation, because I do think it's important they graduate. Yeah. Reward upon graduation that builds the longer you're at the school. I think you'd see less 4th and 5th year seniors jumping ship to go play for other schools their last year. But Stanford had a real difficult one. It's hard to get into school. It's probably the hardest school in the country to get into, which means it's hard to get high school players in the school. Then it's hard to get, when you lose, say, 20 guys, you can't get them in through the transfer portal because they don't have the credits to go to the school. And then COVID really threw an extra whammy on all the higher education schools, because now kids had that extra year, but they already graduated and they can't get into grad school. So like, I want to go to grad school, but I can't get in Stanford. So now I'm going to go somewhere else. And a couple of them I know, jump ship, went to Michigan, won a national championship. And it's kind of a similar situation. Hey, they graduated, they got their degree, they played, they had a good experience, and now they went out and won a national championship at another school. So to your point, you have to provide athletes with incentives to stay at the school. And in today's day and age, they have to be financial incentives in order to keep them there.
No doubt.
No, it's definitely a different time and a different era, for sure. I want to ask you this, and again, thank you so much for hopping on here. I think it was last year, it might have been 2 years ago. Christian had like an interview, and they asked him about during his childhood growing up, and he was talking about some of the workouts and kind of the regimen that you would put. I think him and I think Luke as well kind of talk about just how, I guess, the discipline factor and that you kind of put and instilled into your boys at a young age, and kind of share some of those workouts and training program that you have for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were born with it. I think all the kids grew up loving sports. They just did. And maybe it's because, I played sports. My wife, Lisa, was a college soccer player. She played sports her whole life. And they had a choice to either, sign up for some kind of a sport or sign up for a school activity. They weren't going to be sitting around playing video games or hanging out behind the grocery store after school, right? So they had to do something. We wanted them to stay active. And they always gravitated towards sports. In terms of football, they start at 6 years old in Colorado, but our oldest son, Max, didn't play till he was 9. And Lisa and I agreed we wouldn't sign him up for football till they asked. Being a dad who played football in Colorado for the Broncos, I didn't want to force my kids into playing a sport if they didn't want to play it. So finally, I was still playing at the time. Max's friend asked him to play. He said, hey, I want to give it a shot. He tried out and ended up liking it. And as soon as Christian saw Max playing, he's like, I want to play too. Yeah. And then Dylan and Luke started at 6. They just couldn't wait to get on the field and start playing. And my kids love the team aspect of it. They love being part of a team. They just love the camaraderie, love working hard to be part of something bigger than themselves, just taking the field, the whole thing. And then in terms of their workouts in the beginning, I was still playing. They were doing whatever the coaches wanted them to do. As they got older, I introduced them to sports performance coaches. Lauren Lando's one of them. He used to be the sports performance coach for the Broncos. He's now the sports performance director at Notre Dame. But he was working with them at a young age because he learned from some guys that I learned from, guys like Randy Huntington and guys that were coached Olympic athletes. And so it worked for me. I figured it would work for them. And then they took to it real quickly. And I didn't have that advantage when I was a kid. I didn't train like a pro athlete. I didn't even know how to train. I never went to a football camp. And so one of the things that was important to me, and it's also important for me to introduce young athletes to this at my football camps in June. So we bring in Lando Performance, and they teach the kids all the proper, linear speed mechanics and lateral movement drills. And they get them moving around like football players without them knowing they're moving around like football players. But that type of training translates directly onto the football field with your football movement. So we combine sports performance with football at my camps. My kids grew up doing the camps. I really started them for them and their friends so that they could get introduced to, NFL style sports performance and play football, flag football at the time, and have fun learning the game without getting hit. But that was before they even signed up for tackle. So,
gotcha.
But yeah, it was a pretty strict regimen. The kids exaggerate quite a bit. So they exaggerate quite a bit, but they did get good instruction. And all the teams I coached, I coached 20 years of football, and maybe 10 or more years, 10, 12 years of youth league football. And so every team I ever coached, we made sure we were doing the same type of drills the Denver Broncos were doing.
Well, Ed, I'm gonna tell you right now, you look like you can still play a couple more games right now.
I was about to say, there's no way you got all these kids, and I'm like, no way this guy is just still sitting here looking like he should be suiting up. Yeah. I got to ask you about your son's team, the Niners. They've made a bunch of moves in the offseason. I'm critical because I'm an LA Ram guy. So I got to ask you, like, Devontae Adams has come in the news today saying that the Niners lowballed him, so he ended up going to the Rams. They cut a lot of great players got got out of there this year. Lynch and is making moves. Where are they at, in your opinion, as far as going forward? Did they miss the window to get that ring, or are they going to rebuild this whole thing around Brock Purdy and in this offseason?
No, they did not miss the window, but losing to Kansas City cut like a knife. The year before, they lost their quarterback. Brock Purdy went down. They had no quarterback in the NFC Championship game. They had a chance that year. They went to Philly, big matchup, and Brock goes down, and they end up with no quarterback. I've never seen anything like that. Caused the NFL to change the rule. Unfortunately, they changed it back, which I disagree with. I think you should allow 3 quarterbacks to suit up for every game. But then the next year, like woulda, shoulda, coulda, man. They woulda, shoulda, and coulda won that Super Bowl, and they emphasis on shoulda, but they didn't. Kansas City was a better team that day, unfortunately. Dre Greenlaw went down in that game. That's one of the players that you mentioned that left. To me, that was the single most significant thing that happened in the game. Dre was getting ready to go out on the field, popped his Achilles, out for the game. Like what just happened? And people don't realize, I think, outside of the 49ers, what an impactful player he is. He's like their enforcer. You got Fred Warner, who's phenomenal, future Hall of Famer. You got Dre Greenlaw was the guy that like packed a punch, and he was having a great game, and he went down. I think that really affected the team. Yeah. There were like 20 things that happened in that game that could have been the difference in the game. I just feel like the 49ers didn't play their best game on the biggest stage, but they were a hell of a team.
No doubt.
Last year, they were just decimated with injuries. What are you going to do? You can't predict that stuff. Trent Williams didn't play a lot of the season. They lose their one starting receiver outside the numbers, and Brandon Ayuk, he goes down. Christian missed almost the whole season. And you're like, you can't just lose Hall of Famers and Pro Bowlers and All-Pro players and think you're going to keep winning. Dre Greenlaw didn't play last year, by the way. He was still hurt. Mooney Ward had an awful thing happen to him off the field. So sad. And so he didn't play for a lot of the season. So we're talking 7, 8 All-Pros now. Like you can't lose those guys and expect to have success, in my opinion. But George Kittle crushed it. They had a couple of young offensive linemen stepped up and crushed it. Some of the younger players got experience. Brandon Ayuk should be back. I can't tell you how important that is because he's the outside the numbers Z receiver. Pearsall got more experience. He should be able to fill in for Debo and hopefully have some success. Juwan Jennings missed some time, but Juwan Jennings is a solid player who had a great Super Bowl for what it's worth and had really come up big time when they needed him. And he's my kind of guy, man. He blocks in the run game. He's my kind of guy. So get those guys back on the field offensively, you're good to go. They lost to Funga, but they love Mustafa filling in for him. They lost Greenlaw. They like Wilson. And they have 11 draft picks. So they're going to add 11 players or combine a couple, trade up, get some impact guys they think will start right away. They gotta get some D linemen because they lost a lot of them. This is just how I think. I would bolster the O and D line. You're getting your playmakers back on offense, and bolster the O and D line. Maybe grab someone to compete in the secondary. Grab someone at linebacker. You got 11 picks. If you don't get what you want in the draft, you sign some free agents. So a lot of the analysts, the so-called experts, and I agree with them, think that the 49ers are probably the favorite to win the division. The Rams aren't going to go away lightly. Right? They're a good team, but the 49ers, they got everyone going into this season. It's looking pretty good. They got to go out and do it, right? They got to go out and play, but I don't think they missed their window, but I think they got to make sure some things happen.
How much is Purdy going to get?
$52 million.
52 million. That's a solid number. I think it's a fair number as well. I like that.
It's between 50 and 60. And so 52 is, to me, 52 is the hometown discount. It's like, hey, I'm not going to hold you hostage for 60. There's zero chance I'm playing for 45. Yeah. So realistically, what I think would be a win-win is 52 to 55 a year. And then you structure it where you're the guaranteed money up front is what counts. You can give them $100 million a year and not guarantee hardly any of it. And you could never get paid that money if you back end that contract. So, increase the guaranteed at signing because he's your guy or you wouldn't be signing him. Get the average to something that's respectable. Don't disrespect the man. You want him to be your starting quarterback. So to me, I'd give him 55 if it's really a tough negotiation and they talk to him about we got to re-sign Kittle, we got to re-sign some other guys, we got to bring in a free agent, we want to win, then maybe he gives him a hometown discount. But I feel it's just a gut. 52, 55 is probably the number they're going to settle with.
I love it. I got one last thing, but before we highlight your amazing food company, McCaffrey Brands, I got to ask this. If the Washington Commanders and the San Francisco 49ers see each other in the NFC Championship, Luke versus Christian, who is dad rooting for and why?
I'll tell you what, I will be the happiest dad on the planet. If we have 49ers, Washington Commanders, NFC Championship game, I'm the winner in that one. I win that one. Yeah, no, I'm hoping for that. I was hoping for it last year. I'm hoping for it again this year. So let's go, baby. Let's go. That would be a dream come true. Yeah, it's not even a problem. Like I was about to say, it's a good problem to have. That's not even a problem. That's just a great thing to happen. So let's hope that happens.
No
100%, man. Well, let's close out, man, highlighting and talking about your amazing food company, McCaffrey Brands that you founded. I know it creates healthy and flavorful snacks, primarily protein bites and sauces. Would love to hear from you, though. Talk about what McCaffrey Brands is and where the people can find it.
Well, you know how you stay physically fit, and you know how you get ready to play at an elite level, like in the NFL, by eating birthday cake, fudge brownie,
birthday cake,
and chocolate chip cookie dough.
That look good.
That's how you get ready to play. But these things taste great. So I wanted to emphasize the fact that they taste great, because when you hear something's gluten-free, non-GMO, sustainably made, you almost stop paying attention. But these things are delicious. And it's so important for athletes to get protein. But this is for everyone: mom, dad, youth athletes, pro athletes. You know, we used to forever try to come up with snacks our kids could eat before the game, at halftime, after the game. They go to school. You know, there's a long time between lunch and when school ends, and then you go right to practice. It's hard to go out and get a meal. And so no matter what you're doing, you know, we put this on purpose on a sealable Ziploc, in a sealable Ziploc bag, so you can control your portion size. But, you know, pregame, hard to eat a sandwich right before you go out and play. These give you a little burst of energy. You can eat them as a halftime snack. Post-game, you should have some kind of food within 20 minutes after you play for recovery purposes. And you should spread out your protein throughout the day. And obviously, protein's a big push right now. Everybody's pushing protein because our average American diet doesn't have enough protein in it. And so I think they're the greatest tasting healthy snack on the planet. I hope you guys get to try them. So far, 100% of the people that have tried them have absolutely loved them. So I'm hoping you do too. But they're great tasting and super healthy.
We need those on the show. We'll put them up. I'll put them all over the place. And
no, seriously, they look amazing. I need that fudge brownie. I'm a fudge brownie guy. So go to McCaffreybrands.com and get yours right now. Everybody watching the show live, we got over 3,200 people watching this live. Y'all need to go get that right now.
Ed, man, I can't thank you enough, brother. The best of success to you and the family, and good luck to you guys. And hopefully we can get you on again, and appreciate everything you do.
I enjoyed the show. Thank you guys for having me on. Let's do it again for sure.
Yes, appreciate it. Thank you, brother.